My name is Layla. I am from Egypt. I came to the United States when I was 24 years old. Before that, I lived in Cairo with my parents and 2 sisters. My family was kind and close. We had a small house, but we had big dreams. I wanted to be a writer. I loved stories, I loved books, and I loved words. But there was one big problem. I only knew Arabic. I studied some English in school, but I never spoke it. I could say hello, thank you, and a few small sentences. I was always afraid that I would say something wrong. I was afraid people would laugh at me. So I stayed quiet. When I arrived in the USAS, everything felt big and strange. The airport was loud. The signs were all in English. People spoke fast. I didn't understand. My heart beat fast. I was afraid. I held my bag tightly. I kept thinking, how will I live here? How will I talk to anyone? I didn't have many friends in the USAS. I came alone on a student visa. I got a small apartment near the university. It was quiet, sometimes too quiet. I missed home. I missed Arabic. I missed the sound of my sisters talking and my mother cooking in the kitchen. But most of all, I missed feeling like I belonged somewhere. At the university, I joined an English class for international students. On the first day, I was so nervous. My hands were cold. My heart was heavy. I walked into the room slowly. There were students from different countries: Korea, Brazil, France, and Turkey. Everyone looked as scared as I felt. The teacher came in. She was smiling. Her name was Miss Carol. She wore a yellow sweater and blue jeans. Her voice was soft, but strong. She looked at all of us and said, "Welcome. You are safe here." Her words were simple, but they touched me. For the first time since arriving in America, I felt a little calm. Miss Carol asked us to say our names. When it was my turn, I stood up. My voice was shaking. I said, "My name is Layla. I am from Egypt." My face felt hot, but Miss Carol smiled at me. She said, "Nice to meet you, Layla." I sat down quickly, but in my heart, I felt proud. I spoke English in front of people, and nothing bad happened. The class was simple. We talked about our daily lives. We spoke in pairs. We practiced saying things like, "Where are you from?" and "What do you like to eat?" It was slow, and it was hard sometimes. I made mistakes. I forgot words. I said funny things. But Miss Carol never laughed. She listened. She corrected us kindly. She always said, "Mistakes mean you are learning." One day, after class, I stayed to speak with her. I said, "I want to speak better. I want to write. But I am scared." She looked at me and said something I never forgot. "Layla," she said, "you don't have to be perfect. You only have to be brave." Her words felt like light in a dark room. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be brave. So I started to do small things every day. I spoke to the woman at the grocery store. I asked the bus driver about the stops. I even asked a classmate to have coffee after class. Every time I used English, even a little, I felt stronger. Miss Carroll taught us in a special way. We did not use heavy textbooks. She gave us short stories, easy poems, and small videos. She said, "English is not just grammar. It is feeling. It is life. You have to live it." She showed us how to learn through reading, speaking, and listening. She taught us something called shadowing. She said, "Listen to a sentence in English. Then repeat it. Try to sound like the speaker. Do it many times." At first it felt strange. I played a video and spoke at the same time. But slowly, I saw change. My mouth moved faster. My tongue was not afraid anymore. It was like music. Copy, repeat, copy, repeat. It helped. Another thing she said was, "Think in English. Speak out loud when you are alone. Say what you are doing. Say what you see." It felt funny at first. I walked around my room saying, "I am making tea. The water is hot. I like tea." I laughed at myself. But it helped. The more I spoke, the less afraid I felt. My English was not perfect, but I was using it. It was alive inside me. That was the most important part. At home, I watched children's shows. I paused and repeated sentences. I wrote new words in a small notebook. I carried it everywhere. I even spoke to myself in the mirror. "Hello, my name is Layla. I am from Egypt. I like books. I want to learn English." I said it every day. I began to dream in English. I began to think in English. It became part of me. But not everything was easy. One day, I went to the doctor's office. I needed to ask a question, but I forgot the words. The nurse looked busy. I felt small. I wanted to cry. I stood there in silence. My heart was beating fast. Then I remembered Miss Carroll's voice. "You only have to be brave." So I took a breath. I said slowly, "I don't speak English well. Can you help me?" The nurse looked at me and smiled. "Of course," she said. "You're doing fine." I smiled too. It was a small win, but it meant so much to me. After 1 month, I was speaking more. My classmates noticed. They asked, "Layla, how are you learning so fast?" I said, "I practice every day. I speak out loud. I watch easy videos. I read small stories. And I make mistakes." They laughed. They said, "We want to learn like you." I told them about shadowing and thinking aloud. We started doing it together. After class, we walked to the park and talked in English. We made mistakes. We helped each other. It was fun. I was not fluent yet. I still made mistakes, but I was not afraid anymore. That was the biggest change. Fear kept me quiet, but practice gave me a voice. Miss Carroll helped me believe in myself. She always said, "Your voice matters. Use it." Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. The more I practiced, the more I believed in myself. I started doing small things that I never thought I could do. I joined the library near my apartment. The woman at the desk asked, "How can I help you?" I smiled and said, "I want to read English books." "Easy ones, please." She smiled back and showed me a shelf of books for beginners. I picked a small storybook with pictures. It was called Anna's New Job. I read it slowly at home. I read the same page 5 times, but I liked it. I understood more every time. I underlined new words and said them out loud. The story was about a girl who came to a new city. She was scared, but she found her way. I felt like Anna. Her story was also my story. One day in class, Miss Carroll asked us to talk about our dreams. "What do you want to do in the future?" she said. Everyone spoke about jobs, family, and travel. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath. I said, "I want to be a writer. I want to write stories in English." Some students looked surprised. I felt nervous, but Miss Carroll smiled. She said, "That's a beautiful dream, Layla, and I believe you can do it." Her words gave me hope. That day, I went home and opened a notebook. I started writing small things in English. Just a few lines. Today it rained. I stayed home. I made tea and read a book. That was my first journal entry. My grammar was not perfect, but I didn't care. I was writing in English. I was using my voice. Every morning I walked to school. It took 20 minutes. During the walk, I spoke out loud. I said what I saw. The trees are green. The cars are fast. I feel cold today. People looked at me sometimes, but I didn't stop. It helped me think in English. It helped me feel more natural. In class, I started answering more questions. I stopped worrying about mistakes. Miss Carroll always said, "It's better to try and be wrong than to stay silent and never grow." I remembered that when I wanted to hide. After a few weeks, something special happened. Miss Carroll asked me to help a new student. Her name was Sora. She came from South Korea. She was shy and quiet, just like I was in the beginning. She spoke very little. Miss Carroll said, "Layla, can you help her feel more comfortable?" I said yes. That afternoon, I sat next to Sora. I smiled and said, "It's okay." I was afraid too. Sora looked at me with big eyes. She nodded a little. I asked her simple questions. "Do you like coffee? What is your favorite color?" She smiled and said, "Blue." "And tea?" I laughed. Me too, I said. That was the start of our friendship. Sora and I started studying together. We watched English cartoons. We read short stories and spoke about them. We went to the supermarket and practiced words like milk, bread, and receipt. We even tried to write small stories. I felt proud helping someone else. It made me feel strong. I was not just learning. I was growing. I was becoming someone new. One evening, Miss Carroll showed us a video of a woman giving a speech. The woman had a strong accent, but she spoke clearly. She talked about learning English as an adult. She said, "It's not about sounding perfect. It's about being brave enough to speak." That line stayed in my heart. I watched that video again and again. I copied her voice. I did shadowing with her speech. I said every word she said at the same time. It helped me so much. My mouth felt faster. My English felt smoother. Then came a big moment. Miss Carroll told us, "Next week, each of you will give a small talk. Just 2 minutes. You will tell us about your life or your dream." My hands got cold. My stomach felt tight. I had never spoken in front of a class, but I knew I had to try. I wanted to be that brave woman. So I prepared. I wrote my speech. I read it many times. I practiced in front of the mirror. I practiced in front of Sora. I did shadowing with myself. I recorded my voice and listened. I corrected small things. I didn't want it to be perfect. I just wanted it to be real. The day came. I stood in front of the class. My hands were shaking. My voice was soft. But I spoke. "My name is Layla. I came from Egypt. When I arrived, I was afraid. I could not speak English. I stayed silent. But now I am learning. I am trying. I want to write stories in English. One day, I will. Thank you." The room was quiet. Then my classmates clapped. Miss Carroll smiled and said, "Well done, Layla. You spoke from your heart." I sat down and felt something new. I felt strong. I felt seen. I was not the girl who was too scared to speak anymore. I was becoming the woman who had something to say. Later that day, Miss Carroll came to me. She said, "Layla, would you like to join our school's speaking club?" I didn't know what to say. She explained, "It's a small group. We meet once a week. We practice speaking. No grade, just conversation." I said yes. I was still afraid, but I said yes. The first meeting of the club was small. 5 students and 1 teacher. We sat in a circle and talked about food, music, and dreams. I spoke slowly. I made some mistakes, but no one laughed. Everyone listened. I felt safe. I felt happy. As the weeks passed, I started to feel like I belonged. The bus driver smiled when I said good morning. The cafe worker knew my name and my order. I joined a writing class at the local library. It was in English. It was not easy, but I tried. The teacher there helped me with grammar. She said, "Your ideas are beautiful. Let's work on the words together." At home, I still missed my family. I still felt lonely some days. But now, I could call my parents and say, "I spoke English today. I helped someone. I am learning." My mother cried happy tears. She said, "I am proud of you, Habibti." Those words filled my heart. One Sunday, I wrote a story about my first day in America. I wrote it in English. It was short, just 2 pages. I showed it to Miss Carroll. She read it and said, "Layla, you are already a writer." I laughed, but her words stayed with me. Maybe it was true. Maybe I could become what I dreamed. One day, something special happened. Miss Carroll told me, "Layla, I shared your story with the head teacher. She wants to meet you." I felt nervous. I asked, "Why?" Miss Carroll said, "She thinks your story can help other students. She wants you to speak at the welcome class for new learners." My heart started beating fast. Speak? In front of new students? Me? I wanted to say no. I wanted to hide. But something inside me said, "Say yes." So I took a deep breath and said, "Okay, I will try." That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about my first days in the USA, how I stood in silence, how I was afraid to ask for help. I thought about Miss Carroll's words, "You don't have to be perfect. You only have to be brave." I wrote down my thoughts. I wrote my journey from fear to hope. I practiced saying it aloud. I did shadowing with my own voice. I stood in front of the mirror and practiced again and again. The day of the welcome class came. I wore my favorite shirt and put on a small necklace from home. It reminded me of my mother. I walked into the classroom. There were new students, just like I had been before. Some looked shy. Some looked tired. I saw myself in their eyes. Miss Carroll introduced me. "This is Layla. She was once in your seat. Now she wants to share something with you." I stood up. My hands were cold, but my voice was steady. I said, "Hello. My name is Layla. I am from Egypt. I came here with fear. I could not speak English. I was silent, but now I speak. I read. I write. You can too. Speak every day. Make mistakes. Don't be afraid. English is not about being perfect. It is about trying. It is about connection." The room was quiet. Then, one by one, the students smiled. A few clapped. A woman from China said, "Thank you. You give me hope." I smiled back. For the first time, I felt like I had a voice, not just in English, but in life. I was not just learning the language. I was becoming someone new. I was no longer the girl who was afraid to speak. A few weeks later, Sora came to me. She said, "Layla, I want to write a story. Like you." I smiled and said, "Let's write together." We started meeting at the library. We read small books. We wrote in our notebooks. We helped each other with grammar and spelling. Sometimes we laughed at our funny mistakes. Sometimes we cried when we wrote about home. But we never gave up. One day Sora wrote, "I used to feel invisible. Now I feel brave." I hugged her. I understood those words so well. Miss Carroll told me about a small contest at the library. It was for international students who wanted to share their stories. She said, "Layla, you should enter." I was unsure. My English still had errors. But she looked at me with that same soft smile and said, "Your story matters." So I wrote my story. I called it The Day I Spoke. I printed it, put it in a folder, and submitted it. 1 month later, I got an email. I had won second place. I could not believe it. I read the message again and again. I ran to school and showed Miss Carroll. She cried. "You did it, Layla," she said. "You are a writer now." That night, I sat by my window. The street below was quiet. The stars were bright. I thought about my life. I was still far from home. I still missed my family. But I was not lost anymore. I was found. My world changed because one teacher believed in me. Because she said, "Speak even if you are scared." Because she showed me simple ways to learn, reading stories, thinking aloud, shadowing voices, using English in life. She didn't just teach me English. She helped me find myself again. After that, I started helping new students more often. I met girls who were afraid, boys who never spoke, older women who said, "I am too old to learn." And I told them, "It is never too late." I showed them how to speak slowly, how to listen closely, how to use simple words, and how to grow a little more each day. I told them, "Your voice is not broken. It just needs time." Months passed. Seasons changed. My English became stronger. One day, I went to a job interview. It was for a part-time job at the library. I sat in front of the manager. She asked me questions. I answered with small, clear sentences. I said, "I love books. I love helping people. I learned English here. I want to help others too." She smiled and said, "We'd be lucky to have you." I got the job. Now I work in that library. I help people find books. I talk to them about easy stories and learning English. Sometimes I see a new student walk in, nervous and quiet. I smile and say, "Hi, how can I help you?" And I remember that girl I once was. The girl who sat in silence on a train. The girl who didn't understand the words. The girl who was afraid to speak. That girl still lives inside me. But she is not afraid anymore. She is learning. She is growing. She is speaking. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon. My name is Lynn. I was from Vietnam. My life once felt complete. I was young, I was happy, and I was in love. I had a man who cared for me. His name was Koa. He was my first love, and I thought he would be my last. We laughed together every day. We made plans for our future. We spoke about marriage and children. I trusted him with all my heart. But life did not go as I hoped. One cold night, Koa had an accident. He did not survive. I still remembered the sound of that phone call. My hands shook when I held the phone. I cried for days and nights. I felt like I lost my world. My family tried to help me, but nothing could bring back Koa. I thought my life was finished. I thought I could never love again. Time passed. A year later, my friends told me to move. They said I should study or work abroad. They said it might help me heal. I did not want to leave, but my heart was too heavy in Vietnam. Every street reminded me of him. Every corner was full of memories. So I made a choice. I decided to go to Belgium. Belgium was far from home. It was not easy to move. I said goodbye to my parents and my younger sister. At the airport, my mother hugged me and whispered, "Be strong, my daughter." I smiled, but my eyes were wet. I carried one suitcase full of clothes, books, and memories. When I stepped onto the plane, I felt both afraid and hopeful. I did not know what waited for me. Life in Belgium was very different. The weather was cold, the streets were quiet, and the people spoke a language I did not know. At first, I felt lonely. I missed my family, my food, my language. I worked hard to adjust. I went to language classes and found a small job in a shop. The days were long, but I tried to stay busy. At night, I still cried for Koa. I missed his voice, his touch, his smile. I wondered if love could ever return to me. One morning, my boss asked me to join a new project. It was about software training. That was when I met Mark. He was from Belgium. He was tall, with kind eyes. He was patient with me when I spoke slowly. He said, "Do not worry. You will learn." His smile was warm, and his words were soft. I felt safe when he spoke to me. At first, Mark was only a colleague. He helped me with my work. He explained rules. He showed me how to use new programs. He sometimes offered me coffee during breaks. I thanked him, but I kept my distance. I was afraid to open my heart. I still carried Koa inside me. I thought it was wrong to care for another man, but days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Mark started to share more. He told me about his family. He spoke of his mother who lived in a small town. He spoke of his dreams to travel to Asia one day. I listened quietly, but I enjoyed his stories. Slowly, I felt lighter. When I walked home after work, I sometimes smiled without reason. My heart was not as heavy as before. One evening, Mark asked me, "Do you want to join me for dinner?" I felt nervous. I said no at first, but later, I agreed. We went to a small restaurant near the city center. The lights were soft and the food was warm. We spoke about music, books, and our childhood. I laughed for the first time in a long time. Mark looked at me and said, "Your smile is beautiful." I felt shy, but my heart beat faster. That night when I went home, I sat on my bed and thought about Koa. I whispered his name. I felt guilt in my chest. I asked myself, is it wrong to smile with another man? Is it wrong to eat dinner with him? Tears came to my eyes. I loved Koa, but he was gone. I could not bring him back. I closed my eyes and cried softly. In the next weeks, Mark and I met more often. We went for walks in the park. We shared coffee on cold mornings. He showed me old buildings and told me the history of Belgium. I told him about Vietnam, the rivers, the rice fields, and the food. He laughed when I described the smell of fish sauce. "One day, I will try it," he said. We both laughed. But inside me, there was a war. Part of me wanted to open my heart again. Another part of me said no. It said, "You cannot love again. You will betray Koa." I carried this question every day. Could love really happen twice? Could a broken heart heal? One winter day, snow covered the streets. Mark and I walked together. My hands were cold. He gave me his gloves. "You need these more than me," he said. I looked at him. His face was calm. His eyes were gentle. My heart shook. I wanted to thank him, but no words came. I only whispered, "Thank you." That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking of Mark. I remembered his gloves, his smile, his care. I also remembered Koa's face, his laugh, his love. I felt like I was between two worlds. One was past, one was present. I asked myself, can I really move on? Or must I stay with the memory of the man I lost? As days passed, I started to notice more about Mark. He was kind, but also strong. He worked hard. He cared about people. He once helped an old woman carry her bags in the snow. He once stayed late at work to help a new colleague. I saw his heart, and it touched me. But the guilt inside me never left. I spoke to my friend Mai, who lived in France. She said, "Lynn, Koa is gone. You cannot live in the past forever. It is not betrayal to love again. It is life." Her words gave me courage. Mark asked me again, "Do you want to spend more time together?" This time, I said yes without fear. We started to meet often. We shared meals, books, and music. I began to feel something new. It was not the same as with Koa, but it was warm, real, and present. My heart felt alive again. Still, deep down, I wondered, was this love, or was it just comfort? Could I truly love Mark the way I once loved Koa? These questions stayed with me, even as I walked beside Mark, even as I smiled at him. The story of my past was not finished, and the story of my present was only beginning. Before I continue my story, please subscribe, share, and tell me where you are listening from. Your support means a lot to me. Now let's continue. After some months, Mark and I were close. We were not only friends now, we spent time together after work. We spoke on the phone at night. Sometimes he waited for me at the shop and walked me home. I felt safe when he was near. I liked the sound of his laugh. I liked the way he cared. Mark soon told me about his past. He had been in a long relationship before. It had ended badly. He said he felt broken for a long time. He said he thought he could never trust again. I looked at him with surprise. His pain was different from mine, but I understood it. We were both trying to heal. We were both learning to open our hearts again. One weekend, he took me to his mother's house. She lived in a small town outside the city. The house was simple, but warm. His mother smiled at me. She welcomed me with tea and cake. She spoke slowly because she knew my language skills were not strong. I felt shy, but I was happy she was kind. Mark's mother asked me many questions. She wanted to know about my country, my family, and my life. I told her about Vietnam, about the river near my home, about the sound of the morning market. She listened with interest. She said, "You are far from home, but you are strong." Her words touched me. When we left the house, Mark held my hand for the first time. My heart beat fast. I wanted to pull away, but I did not. I let his hand stay in mine. It felt warm. It felt real. That night, I cried in my room. Not because I was sad, but because I felt both guilty and hopeful. As months passed, Mark wanted more from me. He wanted me to stay in Belgium forever. He wanted me to think of our future together, but I was not sure. My heart was still tied to the past. I also missed my family in Vietnam. I did not know if I could stay in a foreign land all my life. One evening, we sat in a cafe. Mark looked serious. He said, "Lynn, I want to talk. I want to know if we have a future. I want to know if you will stay with me." His words made me quiet. I did not answer at once. I looked at the table. I said, "Mark, I care for you, but I am not sure. My heart is still not free. My family is far. I feel lost." Mark sighed. His face looked sad. He said, "I understand, but it is hard for me. I want you in my life. I want you to choose me." His words made me tremble. I felt pressure. I wanted to please him, but I also wanted to be honest. After that night, things changed a little. Mark was still kind, but I could feel his worry. He wanted me to move faster. I was not ready. I needed more time. He began to ask questions like, "Do you still love Koa?" And, "Am I only second place in your heart?" His voice was soft, but his eyes were full of pain. I did not know what to say. The truth was, I still loved Koa. I would always love him, but I also cared for Mark. My heart was divided. I felt tired. I felt heavy. Later, Mark asked me to meet his friends. We went to a dinner party. His friends were nice, but I felt different. They spoke fast in their own language. I smiled, but I did not understand much. I felt like an outsider. Mark tried to help me, but I still felt alone. That night when we went home, I told him, "Mark, sometimes I feel I do not belong here. Your friends, your world, it is not mine. I am not sure if I can live this life forever." Mark was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "If you love me, you will try." His words cut deep. They were not angry, but they felt heavy. I asked myself if I was ready to give up my country, my family, my language for him. I did not know the answer. One morning, I received a letter from my parents. They told me my sister was going to get married soon. They wanted me to come back home for the wedding. I felt joy when I read it, but I also felt sad. I told Mark about it. He frowned. He said, "If you go back, will you return here? Or will you stay there forever?" I told him I did not know. I wanted to see my family. I wanted to be part of my sister's big day. But I also knew that leaving Belgium, even for a short time, could break the bond with Mark. Mark grew more distant after that. He still met me, but he asked fewer questions. He smiled less. One evening, he said, "Lynn, I am afraid. I am afraid you will leave me. I am afraid you will never give me your whole heart." I looked at him and felt tears in my eyes. I whispered, "I am afraid too." That night, I lay in bed and thought of my life. On one side, I saw my past love, Koa. He was gone, but his memory lived inside me. On the other side, I saw Mark, who was real, alive, and waiting. I asked myself, can I let go of the past? Can I give my future to Mark? The answer did not come. The days grew colder. Winter returned. Snow fell again. I walked with Mark, but silence was often between us. He wanted more. I was not ready. My heart was split. Still, there was love in me. When I saw Mark laugh, I smiled. When I saw him sad, I wanted to hold him. But I also felt tired of the question inside me. Could love really happen twice? One evening, I looked at Mark and said, "I will go to Vietnam for my sister's wedding, but I will come back. I want to try. I want to see if we can have a future." Mark looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "I hope you are true." I left Belgium with a heavy heart. I kissed Mark goodbye at the airport. His eyes were full of hope and fear. My suitcase was full again. But this time, it was not only clothes. It was also the weight of choice, the question of love, and the fear of loss. When I arrived in Vietnam, my family was waiting for me at the airport. My mother hugged me and cried. My father smiled, but his eyes were wet. My sister laughed and held my hand. The house was full of voices, food, and love. I felt warm. I felt like a child again. During the days before the wedding, I helped my sister with clothes, flowers, and guests. We walked together in the market. We laughed at small things. For a while, I forgot my heavy heart. But every night, when I lay in bed, I thought of Mark. I wondered if he was sleeping, if he was missing me, if he still trusted me. The wedding day came. My sister looked beautiful in her dress. My family danced, sang, and ate together. Everyone smiled. But I stood in the corner for a while. I looked at my sister and her husband. I thought about my past. I thought about Koa. He was gone, but his love was still alive in me. I thought about Mark, waiting far away. I felt both joy and pain. After the wedding, my parents spoke to me. My mother asked, "Do you want to stay with us? We miss you. You can work here. You can live near us." My heart shook. I wanted to say yes. But then I remembered Mark. His eyes, his laugh, his care. I remembered how he gave me gloves in the snow. I remembered how he held my hand. That night I sat outside alone. The moon was bright. The air was warm. I thought about my life. I asked myself again, can love happen twice? I thought about Koa. He was my first love, but he was gone. I thought about Mark. He was real. He was here, waiting for me. Slowly, I felt the answer in my heart. Love could not replace love, but love could live again. I spoke to my parents the next day. I said, I will go back to Belgium. I will try to build a life there. I cannot promise forever, but I want to try. My mother looked sad, but she held my hand. She said, follow your heart, Lynn. We want you happy. When I returned to Belgium, Mark was waiting at the airport. His face looked tired, but when he saw me, his eyes grew bright. He came close and asked, "You came back?" I smiled softly and said, "Yes, I came back. I want to try." For a while, life felt better. We spent more time together. We went on small trips. We laughed again. I felt lighter. But soon, the questions returned. Mark wanted promises. He wanted to know if I would stay in Belgium forever. He wanted to know if I would marry him one day. One evening, he looked at me and said, "Lynn, I love you. I want you in my life forever. I need to know if you feel the same." His eyes were full of hope. My heart was full of fear. I looked at him and whispered, "I care for you. I love you too. But my love is not the same as yours. I cannot forget my past. I cannot give all of me." Mark was silent. His face grew pale. He stood up and walked to the window. He said, "I am not enough for you. You still live with your past. I cannot fight a man who is not alive." His voice was quiet, but his words were sharp. My eyes filled with tears. That night we did not speak much. The next days were heavy. Mark was kind, but distant. I tried to reach him, but he pulled away. One afternoon he told me, "Maybe we are not meant to be. Maybe we are too different." My heart broke again. I felt the same pain I had felt with Koa, but this time it was different. Mark was not gone. He was still here, but our love could not live. I left his home and walked in the snow. The streets were empty. The air was cold. My tears fell, but I kept walking. I whispered to myself, I tried to love again. But sometimes trying is not enough. In the weeks after, I lived alone. I worked. I studied. I spoke to my family on the phone. I thought about Mark often. I thought about his care, his laugh, his love. I missed him, but I also knew he wanted more than I could give. One evening, I sat in my small room and wrote in my diary. I wrote, "I have loved twice. First, I loved Koa. That love ended with death. Second, I loved Mark. That love ended with distance and difference. Both loves were real, Both loves taught me something. Both loves made me strong. I closed the diarist and looked at the window. Snow was falling again. I felt pain, but I also felt peace. I knew I had tried. I knew I had opened my heart again, even when I thought it was not possible. Love can happen twice, but it may not last forever. Love can heal, love can hurt, but love always teaches. I was not the same girl who left Vietnam. I was stronger now. I had loved, I had lost, but I had lived, and that was enough for me.